Today I'm going to walk you through on how to make a needle felted owl, just like this. This is Owlsy, and Owlsy is a lilac colored pink, and he has a little yellow beak and a little red tongue, and he's holding a little flower in his hand. So I'm going to show you how to make the eggs that go to the two pieces of the owl. I'm going to show you how to put the Norwegian C1 on there, show you how to do the eyes, and when we're through this video you'll have you a cute little owl. I'm going to set little Owlsy right here next to us, and I've already made his head. I made it out of 5 sheets of core wool, and as you can see it's not really an egg shape, it's actually kind of a oval shape. But for y'all who have never done any needle felting before, I'm going to go through and show you how to make the body. So I'm going to tear off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 layers. 6 layers of fluffy wool. Now, this is a little tricky, so it may take you a couple times to learn how to do this. It takes a little bit of practice to learn how to make an egg, but what we're making right now is we're going to make the body of the owl. So you're going to hold this this core wool in your hand, pressing it down on your thumb, and you're going to roll it over the thumb very tightly so you get a nice firm start there. Then you're going to roll it over your thumb and grab it with your other thumb, roll it over with your thumb, and then you're going to pull it and turn it down. And you want to keep this as tight as possible to keep all the air compressed out of it. And you're going to roll it again on the sides, keeping it compressed, and roll it down. Now at this point sometimes it's a little easier to put it on your mat. Fold the sides in and roll it real tight, keeping it held down. And I'm going to use a double yellow needle. You can buy these on my website. And I'm also working on a felting pad. You don't ever want to work without a felting pad because it can go right through your leg or it can hit the table and your needle will break. These needles are very brittle. You always want to go straight in and straight out. You don't ever want to go in and turn your needle because they will snap off. But this is my favorite needle. This is my workhorse. And keeping your hand out of the way, you just start felting it. All you're doing is jabbing the wool. And what's happened is that if you can see on the needle, on the end there's 4 sets of barbs on the end of the needle, and these barbs are actually entangling the fibers as you jab it. So holding it very tightly, you're going to roll it a little bit and you're going to felt it. You want to felt this pretty good because part of the body here, like right here on the white, is the core wool that shows. So this, you really do want this felted well so it doesn't pull apart. You can use white on the belly or brown. I'm just choosing pink. I'm actually going to do mine today out of purple, kind of a light purple color. So you're going to go all the way around, making sure that you get these fibers good and compressed. It should take about 10 to 15 minutes to get this all done. Maybe not that long, depending on if you're using a single needle or a double. Double needles always work a little faster than single needles do. Please make sure you keep that hand and fingers out of the way. I probably will say that a lot. when I get all the way around it, I can let go and it's not going anywhere. But I haven't gotten all the way around it actually. But I've gotten all the ends felted in. So I'm going to, don't have to hold it quite as tightly now. And you'll be able to tell because the fuzzies, see, this is not felted at all. And this is. You can't really grab it. So that's how you want it to be all the way around. You want it felted very good all the way around. This is a good little project to start with if you've ever done any needle felting, because it kind of teaches you the basics. And the basics, if you're making dolls or animals, is how to roll wool and how to felt it into the shape that you want it to be in. Just so happens in this case we're felting it into what I would consider to be an egg shape. Now that's really tall for a body. I want to compress that a little bit. So I'm going to turn it up on the end. And you're going to want one end of this as flat as you can make it so it can stand up. If you'll notice, of course you'll have to see it from the top of the head, but it does, little owlsie does stand up. So I'm going to felt this end of it as flat as I can. It's not quite flat enough. Sometimes it helps to actually work a little bit more into the center of your piece, because that way it kind of leaves an edge. It kind of leaves an indent right here, and then your owl will see, it'll stand up then. So then I'm going to go ahead and felt this other end real good. And what I'm seeing here is that the head that I've made is quite a bit, is pretty big for this body. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add another layer of core wool. So I'm just going to, I don't really want to add to the length, I just want to make it a little fatter. So I'm going to lay it down, and I'm just going to felt that back over what I've already done, and that's going to thicken it up a little bit. Actually a good bit. It's going to make it quite a bit fatter. You can always add to, it's a little difficult to take away from, so if in doubt, start small. I did the head out of 5 pieces of wool. This is now 7 pieces. And you can kind of play it by ear, because this actually is probably felted a little bit harder than the head is, and I might actually go back and felt on the head a little bit to make it a little bit firmer, and that'll shrink it up in size a good bit. Now if you end up seeing any vegetable matter in your wool, like right here, don't pick it out with your needle, because it'll break your needle. Get a doll needle, or a like a leather needle or something that's very hard and won't bend and break, and that way you can pick it out. You can just pick it out just like that, and you won't break your needle. So I'm going to continue going all the way around it until I get this new layer of wool felted on. Go as fast as you're comfortable with. At first you actually kind of want to go a little bit slower, because you're getting used to using that needle, and you certainly don't want to break it. And when I first started, I used very cheap needles that I bought from a retail store, and probably broke several dozen of them. But these are really good needles. They're strong. They're a little bit stronger needles. The single needles are definitely more brittle than the double needles. This is a single yellow needle. This right here is my attachment needle. It's got barbs further up on the needle so it can actually do the attachment stroke better. Those actually are the two that I'm going to use today. Actually, with this one it would be 3. And you don't need to go all the way in with your needle like that, because the barbs are only up to here. So that's about as deep as you need to go. It's about this deep. That gets that wool entangled just perfectly. And we're almost all the way around here. And you can really tell where you have felted, because it's going to be puffy on the spots maybe that you might have missed. So that makes it kind of easy to see what you're doing. Now I have a quad yellow needle, but and it looks like this. It's got 4 needles on it, but this is actually a little bit, you can use it and it actually makes it go faster, but it doesn't pierce it quite as deep, because you're trying to drive 4 needles in there at one time. So if I'm working on things that are not quite so thick, then I will use my 4 needle. But all in all, I use this double needle more than anything and any other needle that I have. All the supplies that I'm using are actually for sale on my website, if I didn't say that before, which is www.freespiritfelts.com. And with your first order, you get a 20% discount. You just use the coupon code NEWBIE20. NEWBIE 20. Alrighty. Just a little bit more to go. And I think you can already tell the difference of how much fatter this little body is. So, that's basically what I've got right now. Still want to make sure I keep this bottom flat so it will sit right. Okay, so there's the body. Here's the head. The head's a little squishy. I think I'm going to felt it just a little bit more. I didn't go quite as deep on this one as I did the body. But I'm just going to attack it. Just going to attack it, keeping my fingers out of the way, shrinking it down a little bit. If you're familiar with making these pieces, please feel free to fast forward. If you're not, then pause it while you catch up with me. No problem. You can see that I really didn't felt this very well when I first started doing it. But you can always go back and do things over again, and that's one of the things that I want to impress with you. When you start adding your Norwegian C1, you can also use pre-felt to put the skin on, by the way. Pre-felt is already pre-felted, and it comes in sheets. And it does give a smoother texture, but you know, these little owls are outdoor guys, and I kind of like them just a tad bit fuzzy. But when you start adding the Norwegian C1, if you don't like the way it looks, if you don't have it tacked in the right spot, you can it'll lift right off, and you can kind of redo it. So let's see, how's that? That is a little bit better. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the head onto the body, trying to get it centered, and we're going to use our black attachment needle here, and you're going to go all the way around from the head into the body, and then from the body into the head. This is going to give a good strong attachment. Some people use their double yellow needle to do this attachment stroke, and that's just fine. If you don't have a black needle, I just really like the black needle for doing my attachment strokes. And I'll go back with the yellow needle after I get it good and attached to get a cleaner finish. And just notice that I'm keeping my fingers out of the way, not going too deep, because if I go too deep, there's that finger right there. I'm going to make sure I go all the way around it, up and down. Now, as you can see, that's not attached very well. That was what that attachment needle was for. Get these other needles out of the way. So I'm going to come back in here with my double yellow needle, and I'm going to go all the way around it again, making sure I go completely around it, not missing a single little smidgy spot. Because you don't want a little child picking your owl up and ripping its little head off. It'll happen, or it can happen. Going all the way around it. I'll turn it. Oops! Trying to get away from me. I'm going to go from the body up, like I showed you before. The Norwegian C1 will, or the pre-felt, whichever you choose to use, will actually help to hold this head on too. Alright, let's see. Yeah, that's much better. Here's a little spot right here that I need to do a little better on. And believe me, you'll be able to see it. Okay, so now we've got our owl together, so we need to decide which is going to be the front and which is going to be the back. Let me just look at it real quick. I actually think that I want this side to be the front because it's kind of got more of a little belly on it. So I think I want that to be the front. Now this is my Norwegian C1, and I know it looks blue, but it's actually a periwinkle color, kind of a periwinkle light purple color. So I'm going to start down here at the bottom, and if you notice, this owl has pink on the bottom. If we can keep them in the picture there. And I'm going to use my double needle, and I'm going to kind of go around the base. And this Norwegian C1 will actually stretch. So you don't need to use gobs and gobs and gobs of it. You just need to use enough to cover it with. So this is going to cover the whole back. See, the whole back of the owl is actually covered. And we're going to get a few thin spots, but that's okay. We can come back in and fill it in. Which is what is so great about wool, is that it's very forgiving. And it will just do whatever you tell it to do. If you notice, I'm kind of going in at an angle, but I'm still going straight in and straight out. I'm not bending my needle at all. Let me turn this back around. If you notice on the sides, you're going to tear off where you don't need it. Tack it down pretty well. And you know, like I said, you can go back in and fill this in if you don't like the way it looks. Now, to get a clean edge, you go do like that, and then roll your finger over it, and then very carefully, without getting your finger, kind of like that. And that gets a little bit of a cleaner edge. And you also can go in at an angle if you notice that some of that line is a little bit jagged. We'll turn it over to this side and pull some of this off. I'm going to end up filling this in a good bit, probably. That's why I actually like the pre-felt better, but I really wanted for this demonstration to use the Norwegian C1 because it's a little bit cheaper than the pre-felt. You can get a whole ounce of Norwegian C1, and I'm only using about a half an ounce to do this owl. Maybe not even a half an ounce. Now, I'm not pulling and tugging on that needle. All I'm doing is tucking. It's just using a slight tucking motion, and you may not want to do that until you get real used to knowing how much pressure you can put on these needles. So I want to come in a little bit more on this edge right here, so I'm just going to take a little scrap. And kind of go around like that. And then felt the rest of it down. You probably will have to go back in and flatten the bottom just a little bit. We'll see though. Yep, see, kind of, it's weebles, wobbles, and they do fall down. I don't guess weebles fall down, but owls do if you don't get the bottom flat. There. Okay, so you're seeing the top of the head. Okay, now I'm going to get a little bit bigger piece of my felt, and you just tear it off. Now, I'm going to work on this little point, this little point right here on its head. So I'm going to kind of look at it. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm fixing to do the back side. going to kind of look at it and start with a point. And this is going to want to, you're going to want to kind of come around to make a half circle. And then you bring it to a point right here. Now we're going to pull the other side around to try to match it. And I am going to do some, whoops, wrong needle. And I am going to do some more filling in because I don't really want the eye sockets quite that big. I want them a little bit smaller than that. And you want to make sure you get your little points pretty much the same right there. So I see a little tiny scrap I've got here. Got a little hole right here I want to fill in. I save all of the scraps that I have, whether it's Norwegian C1 or pre-felt or whatever it is. I save all of my scraps because you never can tell when you just need a little teeny weeny little piece. We're just going to go around and we're going to felt it down to the head. When you get to the neck area, you're going to want to kind of pull it down. That's a little bit too much, so I can just pull that off a little bit. Save that, of course. And you're going to want to felt it into the neck and felt it down onto the body. That's going to hold it down, hold that head onto the body a little better too. Give it a little definition there. I just love working with wool. It's so easy. It's very compliant with whatever you want it to do. You can make it into a fat person or a thin person or any kind of animal you want. Dragons and owls and horses and pigs and dogs and cats and just unicorns and all sorts of things. Whatever your imagination can think up. I love making owls. And people, for some reason, their owls are real big right now and people just love buying owls. They collect them, or maybe they're a good luck charm or something. But they're cute. And if you don't like the cartoony ones, you can, I do this frequently, just look up on the internet, felted owls, felted horses, felted animals, needle felting, whatever, and you can get so many good ideas off of the internet. There's just thousands of pictures out there that people have of people's creations that they've made from needle felting. It really surprised me in the beginning how many people actually are into needle felting, and yet a lot of people have never heard of it before. Okay, so here's a thin spot right here, and I've got a little scrap that's going to fit right into there. Just like that. Oops, too much. Too much. Oops, I stuck myself because I wasn't watching, I was watching the video. But see, it didn't even bleed. But in case you do bleed, you might want to keep a little alcohol swabs or some Kleenex or something like that next to your work table. If you bleed, you won't bleed much and you won't bleed for long. It's just like a little pin prick. And it's more like a ooch instead of a ouch. Now you can tell when it's felted when you do the pinch test. See that? It's still coming out a little bit because I didn't felt it really well right there. So you want to make sure that this, especially this outer layer, is felted really well, because you don't want it, I mean, you don't want it coming apart. But you don't want to work yourself to death either over for an owl, but you know, they take an hour maybe to make. And it's a good relaxing hour. Sometimes actually going the way I'm doing, just actually going parallel to the fabric, actually tames the fuzzies down a good bit. Let's see if it still stands up. Oh, it's going to fall backwards, which means I need to flatten the front out just a little bit more. There. Okay, so now I guess you see the top of the head's very thin. So I'm going to take a piece of C1 and I'm going to put some more on there. Because I don't want him to be a balding owl. If there is such a thing. There's bald eagles, but I don't know if there's bald owls. So what I want to do is I want to bring this in a little bit more here. And I can use these scraps that I've got. Sorry, I don't mean to get quiet on you, but I don't want to talk you to death either. If you listen very carefully, the punching of the needle into the wool is actually very relaxing. Okay, so that's better on that side. Let's see, this needs to be felted just a little bit better on the face part of it. Even though we are going to put some more C1 on that. Now I'm going to come to this side, and I'm sorry I have to turn it like this, but I need to get it in the right place. So both sides are even. Too much right there. Go right down to that point that's in the front there. Need to felt it a little bit more into its neck. On top here for a minute. Get the top of the head. I'm going to look at it real good. This needs to be felted down just a little bit, just like I did on the other side. Okay, so now you can see it's got a little point. It's got places for its little eyes. So I'm going to take a small piece of Norwegian C1 and I'm going to make 2 eyeballs. Like one right here. Go around in a circle, as much of a circle as you can, and then like I did on the other part, you pull lightly, pull in the excess so you get a clean edge. And just like on everything else, you can fill these in if it's not quite big enough, and I can tell you this eyeball probably won't be big enough. But I'm going to go ahead and do the other eyeball. Now, a trick I've learned is that you do it, if you look at it upside down, you can get it more even. And on the second eye, I like to go work from the inside out. So that goes, and I'll show it to you as soon as I get it done. But trust me, looking upside down makes a world of difference. And again, I'm not pulling on this wool. I'm just fluffing it over. I'm going to push the circle out a little bit more because I've got more on this side than I do the other side. So I can make it a little bit bigger. So as you can see, they're not really even yet. So I'm going to make this circle a little bigger by pushing out, just stabbing out. Let's say stabbing out, not pushing out, because you're not really pushing with your needle, you're stabbing it. And I just happened to get enough on that time. Okay, so that eye looks really good. That eye looks really goofy. We'll take a little bit more of my C1 and I'm going to work from the center because it needs to be a little darker. And that way I can do like the other one did, and I can push the felt to where I want it to be. I'll look at it upside down again. Okay, so I can tell this side needs to go out just a little bit. And this bottom needs to come up a little bit. And there's a piece of vegetable matter that I do not want in his eye. And there's a piece right there. His nose will probably cover that one up though, but So I'm going to, instead of making this side smaller, I'm going to push out on this one just a little bit more. I think that's pretty even there. So now what I go after is I go after my little scraps of pre-felt, and I put little pieces that you need of pre-felt in. See, I just have bags of pre-felt scraps, and I need let's say we're going to use some yellow for the beak, and we're going to need some black for the center of the eyes. There's some black. We're going to need a little bit of white for the gleam in the eyes, which I didn't do on the other one. And then I'm going to need a piece of red. I don't have any red in this bag. I do in my other bag. Lots of red in this bag. And that's about all I need. So I'm going to take a pair of scissors and I'm going to cut the center of the black out for the eyeballs. Okay? I'm just going to cut a small circle, and definitely needs to be smaller than the colored part of the eye. Let's see if that works. Okay. And they're not perfectly round, but when I get finished they will be perfectly round. As perfectly round as I can get them. Kind of felt it around the edges and then felt it into the center. And like you did with the color, you can push it in where it's not right, push it out where it's not right. There's one. Now I'm going to turn this one upside down, make sure I get it in the right spot. Tack it around the edges, felt it into the middle. Because you want to, what you're doing is you're making these all one piece of wool. The pre-felt is going to become one with the Norwegian C1, and the Norwegian C1 is going to become one with the core wool. You see that? Okay. Now we're going to give him a little gleam of glitter in his eye. A little sparkle of life. I'm going to use my single needle for this. And I kind of want to get maybe halfway on the color and halfway on the black. And kind of up in the corner like the light hits your eye, kind of in the corner. Just like that. Another piece of my little pre-felt, and so you just tear this pre-felt. You don't need much of it. We'll kind of make it into a little line. I'm going to put it on the same side. Try to get it about the same spot if I can. This yellow needle, I've used it so much it's starting to kind of curve a little bit, but hadn't broken it yet, knock on wood. So there you go. There's the little glimmer of light into it in his eyes. Pull this down just a little bit. So now we've got the eyes done. Now we're going to do the beak. Take a piece of pre-felt and I'm going to fold it 4 times. I'm going to cut it off, and I'm going to kind of, not a circle, kind of an oblong, like that. And then you're going to felt all 4 layers. All the way through. You're going to peel it up off your pad, and you're going to gently tack those little fuzzies down, just so they don't stick up all over the place. Okay, now I'm going to fold it in half like this, and I'm going to put it right between the eyes, down on almost on the chest a little bit, and I'm going to poke it in the center. I do my beaks so different every single time, so you know, it just doesn't matter as long as it looks like a little beak. Before I get too crazy with that, I'm going to take this piece of red pre-felt, and I'm going to cut it in the shape of a short little tongue, because it doesn't need to be very long. Just like that. I'm going to put it right in the center, and I might actually have to trim this off because it may be too long. No, I can shove it down in there. Maybe we'll leave his little tongue sticking out. Maybe not. Maybe we just want a semblance of a tongue. How about the inside of a mouth? There we go. That's kind of cute. So I want to come in on these sides a little bit. Make it look a little more beaky. And you might find a better way to do a beak. But this is the way that I kind of taught myself how to do it. And there's the beak. Pull it down a little bit so it sticks out. Now we're going to do the arms. That'll be the last thing that we do. No, they're not arms, they're wings. So I'm going to take a piece of Norwegian C1. I don't need a whole lot. We'll move my little L to the side there for a minute. Maybe 2 layers. And I'm going to felt it. I'm going to make it into a sheet of pre-felt, basically. And yeah, you hear me going down through the pad, and that's fine, because one side of it's not even going to show. If you see I've got that little wing on there, and you can make them pointed or rounded or just, you know, whatever. You can leave them free floating in the air, I guess. If you pre-felt this, if you felt it down good enough, you can leave it floating in the air. But I would suggest that you actually felt both sides of it if you're going to leave it floating in the air. And you might even want to use 3 layers instead of 2. Trying to get enough to where I can get both wings out of this. I hope. fold that over and make it another layer down here on the end. Incidentally, if you're doing doll clothes and you're using a Norwegian C1, this is how you make doll clothes. You actually make it into a piece of felt, and then you cut it out into the pattern that you want. Now I'm going to ever so gently, I know it doesn't look very gently, but I'm going to peel it up. And yeah, see, this side won't even show. So to get 2 wings, I'm going to fold it lengthwise in half. I'm going to cut straight down. I think I'm going to make this maybe a little pointed wing. And then I'm going to cut it right down the middle. So I'll have 1 wing for each side. And then you want to refelt where you cut it. All along that edge there. Because those are now loose fibers. And we don't want any loose fibers. Okay, so now we're going to attach the wing. So if we wanted it free floating, we could just leave it like that. And you could attach one and have the other one free floating or whatever. But you want to tack it along, right along the side there, so it lines up with your the C1 on the body. And you're going to blend that Norwegian C1 right into the body. And it's very simple to do. If you get a line, see this line, you take your doll needle and you're going to fluff it. Just fluff it just like that. And only do it on the part that you're felting down. And then you can tack it down and you won't even see that line. Not hardly. Or you can push it, or you can do both. So I think this one, I'm just going to tack this one like right around the edges so it's a little bit fluffy in the center, like Pinky's. Can you still see Pinky? Yeah, not Pinky, Owlsy. I have a pup that I made, needle felted pup that I called Pinky. Okay, so there is 1 wing. Now what do I want to do with the other wing? Let's see. I could do it like this, and I could have them kind of touch in the middle. Or I could let it be flow free like that. Or I can make a little curl in it so I can stick a little flower in it like I did with Pinky. But for right now, I'm just going to make the decision to tack it down. That's a single needle. I want my double needle. Another tip, if you don't, it's better not to actually leave your needles in your pad unless you put them right here on the edge. I have a little cup that I got from the dollar store, and I stuffed it full of wool and felted the wool down, and I keep all my needles in that when they're not in use. So we're just about done with our cute little owl, except for we got to put some ears on him and then we'll be done. Almost forgot about his little ears. So just for giggles, I think we're just going to let the wings touch, because I don't normally do that. I normally put a little pocket in it so it can hold something, but I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. And that's the beauty of felting. You can do it whichever way you want. Excuse me. Got a little tickle. Might have got a little wool down my throat. So how does that look? There you go. There's... might want to separate them just a little bit. Like that. And point them down so they look like two separate wings. Okay, there we go. Now all we got to do is make the ears, and you can actually take this piece of felt that you started pre-felting and finish it, because you won't need very much. See how little the ears are on a little owl? They're not very big at all. So we should be able to get 2 ears out of this one piece of pre-felt that I've done. So I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to cut it into a triangle, just like that. I'm going to take this ear right here, lay it down flat and felt it, and then pull it over and felt it on the back side. Not even in the camera. Just like that. And you may want to lay it down, because you know what I forgot to do is I forgot to felt the edges of it. And it will come apart if you don't. There's one little ear. Now I'm going to felt this one so I don't make that same mistake. Okay, the trick, getting it in the same spot. That looks about right to me. Pull this little beak down a little bit, kind of pull it in, and there you go. There's your needle felted owl, and he is a cute one. I hope you enjoyed the workshop today, and keep looking on the website for more and more workshops on CD. Have a great day.